Elon Musk, shocked to discover Black Millionaire teaching his son piano instead of a mendigo. It started like a wildfire. Whispers, shocks, gasps, ricocheting through James Porter's pristine neighborhood. Elon Musk, the king of tech, supposedly stunned after finding out his son wasn't buried in robotics books, like everyone assumed. Nope. Instead, the boy was taking piano lessons from Marcus, a black musician, in the middle of the city, not from some celebrated maestro tucked in the suburbs, but Marcus, a gifted player with rough hands and an even rougher past. James couldn't wrap his head around it. This wasn't some broke street hustler. This was a man dripping in talent, but dragged down by streets nobody in James's world dared to cross. Marcus was different. His studio smelled of old leather and secondhand vinyl, not brushed steel and fresh paint, like James's sleek mansion. And yet, here was his son, fingers flying over the keys. When James first heard the news, he nearly choked. "Piano lessons?" he snapped to his wife, the disbelief sharp in his voice. "I booked robotics tutors, not this." The thought of Marcus teaching his kid sent a cold lump tumbling down his throat. In his mind, Marcus should have been some mendigo, a struggling loner scraping by, not a millionaire artist molding his son's soul. Neighbors caught wind. In the endless calm of a gated street carved from manicured hedges and expensive cars, a whisper felt like wildfire. "Did you hear? Porter's kid hooked up with that inner-city musician guy." Eyes darted sideways, mouths tightened. This wasn't typical. This wasn't safe. Or at least, that's what they said. James found himself buried beneath a confusing storm of pride, fear, and guilt. Why did it itch so much? The idea of his son learning from Marcus. Watching his boy's face light up, cheeks flushed with laughter and wild concentration, James felt that sting sharpen. The son who once dreaded every second of robotics class now begged for more piano time. How? Why? The heavier truth gnawed at James late into the night. The fierce grip of his own insecurities. Was it race? Status? Fear of what his powerful circle might think. His chest tightened just thinking about the judgmental stares already gathering at neighborhood parties. Yet, when Marcus played softly, teaching not just notes, but stories soaked with pain and joy, James's walls softened. The music slithered under his skin in ways no gadget ever had. But Marcus was hiding too. Behind his confident grin and effortless rhythm lay broken family secrets, shadows clawing to keep him trapped in silence. Rumors swirled about his past, casting dark clouds that could shatter everything he'd built. And as a prestigious piano competition neared, a showdown pitting Marcus against a world-famous pianist known for crushing upstarts, tensions boiled over. James stood at the edge of a battle. Could he step beyond everything he thought he knew? Could he support the bridge forming between his son and Marcus, even if it tore apart old beliefs? Or would fear win, dragging them all into an impossible silence? On the night before the competition, a final question hung heavy in the air. Can James face his own demons and embrace this new world? Or will he shut the door on the music and on his son's heart forever. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribe, and since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact! On the night before the competition, an air of tension wrapped around James like a thick fog. He had spent hours pacing the gilded halls of his home, each step echoing his inner turmoil. The thought of his kid under Marcus's guidance filled him with both unease and strange longing. Maybe they could push the music together, beyond race and privilege. But a nagging doubt clawed at him. Was he prepared to face the judgment? Suddenly, a loud knock. Standing there was a tall figure wrapped in shadows, but in a heartbeat. Recognition hit. Marcus's brother, Amir. His face was a storm of emotions. Anger, worry, something darker. James, you need to come with me. It's Marcus, now. The urgency in Amir's voice sliced through the air, sending a chill racing up James's spine. What about Marcus? What happened? He searched Amir's eyes, feeling panic tighten his chest. Just come. You won't believe what's going on. James didn't hesitate. He stepped outside, the cool night air hitting him. They sped through the city streets, darkness closing in around them. Each heartbeat echoed louder than a kick drum as unanswered questions rolled in his mind. They arrived at a rundown house on the edge of the neighborhood, a sharp contrast to James's world. It was a far cry from polished marble and soft-spoken etiquette. Uncertain, they stepped inside, the heavy smell of old wood and something sweet. Silence fell as they entered, and then James froze. In the dim light, they found Marcus on the floor, frail and pale, surrounded by crumbled papers and an overturned piano. He was shaking, eyes wild and glazed over. "Get away from me!" he screamed, a mix of fear and fury pouring from him. "Marcus, what happened?" Amir crouched down, voice gentle but insistent. "Don't you get it? They're coming! I can't let them take me back!" The frantic energy in Marcus's voice lit every corner of the room. "Who's coming?" James's heart raced, something primal erupting inside him. "Those people from my past! They found out! They're coming to take everything!" His eyes darted around, landing on James, electricity vibrating in the space between them. "You don't understand!" James shook his head in disbelief. What was Marcus hiding? The image he had of a struggling musician clashed with what he was facing. A man on the edge of breaking, painted with colors of desperation he hadn't considered. I thought this was just about music," James whispered, the lump in his throat blocking his voice. "I was trying to escape, to be something more. But now," Marcus's voice broke, layers of vulnerability stripped away. Before they could react, the door slammed open, revealing figures cloaked in darkness. James's stomach dropped as he felt the air shift with fear, moving too fast, too dangerously toward him. He glanced at Amir, both realizing a terrible truth. Everything was about to change. Relationships forged through music might shatter in an instant. James's carefully built world tilted on its axis. He stood at the edge, caught between old beliefs and the raw reality of a friend fighting for his life. And suddenly, it all felt so flimsy, like glass about to shatter under pressure. "Run!" Amir shouted, grabbing Marcus. But would James follow? Would he embrace this new reality bursting around him? Uncertainty filled the air, heavy and thick. As shadows loomed closer, James had to decide. Would he rescue the music and the man, or let fear pull him back into the silence? The question hung there, a knife-edge moment caught in time. On the night before the competition, the living room buzzed with anticipation. James and his son sat side by side. Notebooks scattered with musical notes, distractions lurking in every corner. But the air was too thick with anxiety. James repeatedly glanced at his watch, time slipping away like a stubborn secret. "Marcus will be here soon," he murmured, trying to hide the unease creeping up his spine. Then the door swung open with a bang. Marcus stepped in, his presence nearly filling the room. Confidence radiated off him, a stark contrast to the flickers of doubt gnawing at James. As Marcus settled onto the piano bench, laughter bubbled up, lightening the moment. Little did they know, shadows lurked just beyond their small oasis of music. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house. James jumped up, chest tight. What was that? Panic rolled in his stomach. He raced towards the sound, heart pounding as he burst through the kitchen door. There it was, a disaster scene. A broken window, shards of glass, sparkling like ice on the floor. But no sign of intruders, just silence. "Everything okay?" Marcus's voice cut through the tension, full of concern. James nodded, but dread twisted inside him. Then he spotted something glinting near the window, a dark, folded note. With trembling hands, he picked it up. The handwriting was hurried, jagged, almost frantic. "Leave him alone, or you'll regret it," it warned. Cold chills spiraled through his veins. Who was this about? Was it a threat against his son? 1,000 questions crashed in, suffocating him. Who would dare? And why now, just before the competition? He quickly folded the note back, heart racing, every instinct demanding he protect his son. The thought of backlash rippled through him. Would it tell of Marcus's past? Was he somehow wrapped up in this mess? When he returned, a different tension hung in the air. Marcus, sensing something was off, locked eyes with James. "What happened?" he asked, concern deepening. "The note," James whispered, revealing it slowly, his hands shaking. Marcus's brow furrowed, his calm exterior cracking, just enough for James to see shadows flash within. "Are you really who we think you are?" Doubt gnawed at him like a relentless bug. Marcus's expression darkened as he read it. "I need to explain," he said quietly, voice laced with an urgency that couldn't be ignored. James felt heat rise to his cheeks, confusion and anger bubbling within. "This is about you, isn't it? Your past." Before Marcus could answer, another crash resonated from outside. Their neighbors, drawn by the noise, gathered on the street, eyes wide, judgment evident. "What's going on in there?" a woman hissed, sending another wave of embarrassment crashing over James. "I've got to take care of something," Marcus said abruptly, gripping the back of the piano as if to steady himself. "I'll be right back." He darted out of the house, leaving James grappling with a vortex of fear and the dawn of a terrible truth. The doors swung shut with a soft thud. And just like that, as the door closed behind Marcus, a crushing silence settled. What had James gotten himself into? Could he really stand on this path with both a son and a past intertwining in ways he never imagined? His heart raced. The competition felt further away than ever. Now it all hung by the thinnest thread. He glanced at the gathering neighbors, their whispers growing louder, tension surrounding him like a storm. What's he hiding? Why's James involved? Beneath it all, doubt crept in, dark and clawing. Could he truly support the bridge between his son and Marcus, or had he opened his life to a hidden chaos that could pull them all down? Would tomorrow even come? As the night deepened, the shadows cast by secrets loomed larger, ready to devour everything. The air hung heavy in the room as James shoved the note deep into his pocket, his heart racing. He could feel the eyes of the neighbors outside, their whispers buzzing like flies. "What's happening?" he murmured to himself, the question echoing in the depths of his mind. He needed answers. Then, with a sudden crash, the front door burst open. Startled, James swung around. It was Marcus, his face pale, chest heaving. "James!" he shouted, breathing heavily. "They're here!" Before James could react, Marcus rushed in, slamming the door behind him. His eyes were wild, panic etched across his features. "I need your help!" "Help? From who?" James was both startled and frightened. Something was terribly wrong. "What do you mean? They're not just after me!" Marcus gasped, running a hand through his messy hair. "They've found out about everything! You're in danger too. They know about your son." The sudden shift felt like the ground had crumbled beneath him. What? James couldn't wrap his head around it. "What do you mean, everything? Who are they?" "People from my past. Bad people." Marcus stepped closer, urgency in his voice. "I thought I could leave that life behind, but they don't let you go. Once they know you, they're like shadows, always lurking, waiting to strike." James's heart sank deeper. He had opened his home, his trust, to someone wrapped in shadows he barely understood. "I can't believe this," he whispered, his voice shaking. A muffled laugh came from outside, and every nerve in James's body lit up. In that moment of tension, everything seemed to freeze. He could almost hear the neighbors' conjectures through the thin walls. "What's going on in there?" "Did you see Marcus? What's he hiding?" "Please, we need to go now," Marcus ordered, his desperation palpable. But suddenly a loud crash shattered the moment as the window beside them smashed open, sending shards flying. Time slowed, glass glittered in the air. James felt a sharp piece slice through his arm, pain erupting as he staggered back. "Get down!" Marcus yelled, shoving James to the floor, shielding him. The world outside morphed into chaos. Dark figures surged through the home's yard. James could hear their shouts, harsh and commanding. "We know he's in there. No one gets hurt. Just hand over Marcus." The panic surged like a wave, drowning logic. "Why?" James gasped, adrenaline surging. "What do they want?" "They want revenge!" Marcus shouted, his voice laced with fear. "They want to make me suffer for getting away, but they won't just come for me. They'll come for anyone associated with me." James's mind raced. The truth crashed over him like ice water. These threats weren't linked to music or talent. They were about something deeper, more terrifying. Marcus, what did you do? It's too late to explain. Marcus clenched his fists, turning back toward the chaos outside. I can't let them find you or your son. In that moment, just outside, a voice called out with calm authority, cutting through the fear. Marcus, you know what to do. This is your last chance. James froze. Who was that? A chill crept up his spine, realization dawning. Before he could answer, a figure stepped into view, a man clad in a sharp suit, sharp eyes boring into Marcus. You're coming with me. It gets messy if we do this the hard way. As the pieces clicked into place, James felt his world unravel. Marcus wasn't merely a victim. He was a pawn in a game he didn't fully understand. Who are you? James shouted, heart racing. But even as he spoke, doubt crept in. He knew this was so much bigger than music. It was about survival, secrets, and shadows lurking deeper than he imagined. And with a swift move, the stranger reached for Marcus, shadows looming heavy in the doorway. Run! Take your son and leave! Marcus shouted. You can't stay. Could James really go back to normalcy? As dread washed over him, a revelation hit like lightning. Nothing would ever be the same again. His son's laughter, the music, it was all swallowed in the tide of shadows, threatening to drown them all. Marcus! James yelled, but it was too late. The reality of the night crashed hard. What would happen next? Would he follow the warnings? Or would the truth of who Marcus really was tear their worlds apart? The shadows surged forth, closing in fast. The choice loomed heavy, sharp as broken glass. What would he decide when the darkness came knocking? James stood at the edge of that silent abyss. The tension in the air thickened, wrapping around him like a vice. The weight of his choice pressed uncomfortably on his chest. He glanced at the clock. It was late, just hours before the competition, and he felt torn. Marcus had become a part of his son's life, a guiding light. But could he really let go of all the old beliefs? Suddenly, a loud crash splintered the stillness, slicing through his thoughts like a knife. The front door of their house flew open, banging against the wall. James's heart raced. A figure stumbled in, drenched and wild-eyed. His neighbor, Henry, gasping for breath, panic radiating off him like heat waves. James, you need to see this! He shouted, the urgency ripping through the room. What's going on? James snapped, struggling to make sense of the chaos. Henry barely managed to catch his breath, his voice shaking. It's Marcus, they, etc. They're saying he's connected to something big. What do you mean? James's mind whirled, panic creeping in. What are you talking about? Something criminal. He's got ties to an old gang, Henry blurted out. They found some photos, rumors all around the neighborhood. People are saying he might be involved in something serious. You need to protect your son. James's heart dropped. All the air left his lungs. His vision blurred, then narrowed, focusing on his neighbor's frantic eyes. What? It felt surreal. Hadn't Marcus fought through everything? Henry stepped closer, urgency boiling over. There've been whispers of laundering money through music events, and now they've caught wind of the competition. If he's tied to that... Panic exploded in James's brain. What had he been thinking? All those evenings spent with Marcus, watching his son evolve under his guidance, the music pulling them all together. Was it built on a foundation of lies? James, Henry's voice jolted him. If this gets out, out! The noise of the street faded. The world outside vanished. The walls of his pristine life flexed and buckled under the stress of a sudden reality. His whole notion of safety cracked. What if the very person who inspired his son was also the one who could drag him into shadows? Could talent mask danger? His hands trembled, cold sweat prickling at the back of his neck. Then, just like that, the front door swung wide open again, this time revealing Marcus himself, drenched in rain, eyes bright but shadowed. "James, I need to talk. There's a misunderstanding." James's heart raced, caught in a tempest of confusion and dread. Thoughts clashed violently, his son's laughter mixing with his own rising fear. The warmth of music was now a thorny vine, choking out the laughter. "James?" Marcus stepped forward, voice low and steady. "I need you to listen." But how could he? The whirlwind of fear-cloaked whispers flooded his mind. All of it. The future, the connection, the promise of their worlds colliding, was suddenly hanging by a thread. Before he could respond, Marcus glanced over, sensing Henry's tense presence behind him. A flicker of recognition passed through his eyes. "You've heard too, haven't you?" The silence crashed back down, solid and heavy. Who was Marcus really? And what did it mean for his son? James's heart pounded. He had a choice to make. This was no longer just about music. It was about trust. Was his son ready for what lay ahead? Would he take a leap, or would fear hold them all captive? The question hung unsaid, trembling in the air like the final note of a haunting melody, lingering longer than it should, leaving everything uncertain. On the night before the competition, the weight of the moment pressed down heavily on James. He stood in the living room, staring out the window at the well-manicured hedge, the moonlight casting long shadows. His heart raced. Could he really support Marcus? But just as he began to consider the idea, a loud crash shattered the fragile quiet. A flash, a blinding light, illuminated the room like lightning. James spun around. He found his son standing in the doorway, his face pale, eyes wide with terror. He restored him, but as he crossed the threshold into the hallway, a wave of chaos unfolded before him. The sound blasted louder. Screams, shouts, something metal clattering violently downstairs. It felt like a scene from a movie, surreal and terrifying. "Stay here," James commanded, though it felt hollow as he moved toward the staircase. With each step, dread pooled in his stomach. What was happening? As he reached the bottom step, another crash echoed from the kitchen, followed by a familiar voice, frantic and ragged. "James!" It was Marcus. James's heart lurched. He bolted into the kitchen, breath hitching in his throat. There stood Marcus, a wild look in his eyes, clutching a blood-soaked cloth to his arm. "They came out of nowhere," he gasped. "I didn't know. I thought I was safe." "Safe? What the hell are you talking about?" Fear laced James' voice, but curiosity tugged harder. Beyond Marcus, the kitchen window was shattered. Glass lay strewn about like dangerous confetti, the streetlights outside flickering ominously. "They wanted me to stay quiet," Marcus managed, his voice trembling. "But I couldn't. I couldn't let them hurt your son." Confusion surged through James. Who? What's going on? He stepped closer, but Marcus winced as he pressed harder on the wound. That cloth was drenched. There was so much red. Panic edged its way into James's mind, narrowing his focus. You need to get help! No time, Marcus hissed. Listen, James. They know I'm here. They've been watching. They won't stop until... But before he could finish, the door burst open, slamming against the wall. The silhouette that stepped through was imposing. A figure wrapped in shadows, eyes glinting in the low light. Marcus! It was a voice like gravel, low and threatening, as unyielding as cement. You shouldn't have come back. James stood frozen as dread gripped him. Who was this? A chill ran down his spine. The man took a step further inside, and that's when Marcus moved, pushing James behind him. Run! He shouted, urgency fueling every syllable. An explosion rattled the air, and James's pulse quickened. The tension snapped. The stranger lunged, but Marcus was already in motion, throwing something, a heavy chair, against him. It crashed on impact, giving James precious seconds to react. His son tugged at his hand, eyes wide with terror. And they bolted up the stairs, adrenaline surging. Suddenly, the world shifted around them. Everything James thought he knew about Marcus, about his son's lessons, the music, the bridge forming between them, was spun on its axis, leaving a vortex of uncertainty. There they were, seeking safety from a storm they didn't fully understand. The echoes of chaos trailing behind them. Just as they reached the safety of the second floor, a voice rang out, sharp and piercing in the storm of confusion. You think you can hide? Fear turned to ice in James's veins as he glanced at Marcus, the man who had become a mentor, but now stood mysteriously at the center of the chaos. What other secrets lay beneath the surface? As the thunder of footsteps thundered below, James realized he was standing at a crossroad. Could he confront the truth, or would the music fade into silence forever? James stood in the dim light of his home office, heart racing, swallowed by uncertainty. Just hours before, he had tucked his son into bed, the echoes of piano notes still tickling his ears. But sleep wouldn't find him tonight. He paced, running fingers through his hair, trying to shake off the weight on his chest. Should he let this bond blossom? Could he confront his fears? Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. Startled, he froze. It wasn't late at night. Who could it be? As he opened the door, the chill from the night spilled in, and standing there was Marcus, his face glistening with sweat and something darker lurking in his eyes. James sensed urgency. Something was wrong. Marcus, what happened? James asked, instantly on guard. James, I need to talk. It's important. His voice shook, each word a struggle. Can we step outside? Nervously, James nodded. A million scenarios raced through his mind as they stepped into the cool night air. Soft moonlight illuminated the street, casting long shadows across perfectly trimmed lawns. The world felt frozen, waiting for whatever was about to unfold. Please, just hear me out, Marcus urged, panic etched in every line of his face. I can't keep it from you any longer. What's going on? James pressed, clenching his fists. Marcus took a deep breath, I'm not who you think I am. James tilted his head, brows furrowing in confusion. What do you mean? Let me explain, Marcus said, eyes darting around like shadows creeping closer. I was in a gang a long time ago. I got out, cleaned up my life. But before all that, I was tied into some serious stuff. I don't want your son involved in what I've left behind. The words struck James like a punch to the gut. What kind of stuff? I had a brother. A mistake happened. A robbery gone wrong. I got blamed. He was killed. The air thickened. They think you're a murderer? No, not just that. I was involved in some crime syndicate, and now they found me. James felt his heart drop. What do you mean? I got a message tonight. They want me back, James. If I don't join them again, they'll come after what I love. Each word crashed over James like a wave, dragging him into a whirlpool of reality. He felt the prickling fear, the deepening tension of the night closing in. What does this have to do with my son? Because if they can't have me, they'll come for him, Marcus said, voice cracking. I can't let that happen. I don't want him to part of this world I used to be part of. The revelation pierced through James's heart. Trust was shattering. All that pride and guilt twisted into a knot of horror. Was this bond built on a lie? He suddenly saw Marcus not just as a teacher, but as a potential threat. Could his son be in danger from the person shaping his dreams? Marcus, you have to leave. You can't be around him anymore. Panic squirmed within him. No, listen, I need you to believe me. But the chaos spiraled. The sound of wheels screeching broke through the silence. A black SUV rolled down the street, headlights piercing the darkness, searching. James's fierce emotions collided, confusion morphing into raw fear. He could feel the walls closing in, the shadows creeping. The air felt charged, electric with danger. Run, Marcus! Get away! The night spiraled into chaos as Marcus turned to flee. Heart racing, breath heaving, James suddenly grasping the depth of the mess they were in. As the SUV came to a halt, doors slamming open, James stood frozen. Could he truly let go of what he had begun to embrace? In one wild moment, as panic unfolded, the silence was shattered, and James realized he was standing at the edge of something far darker than he ever imagined. Everything he thought he understood began to unravel. The ground underfoot felt uncertain. Would he face the truth? Or would the past drown out his son's future forever? James stood frozen, heart hammering in his chest. He caught a glimpse of the black SUV's headlights washing over the front yard, illuminating the night like a spotlight on a dark stage. This was no longer a simple misunderstanding. Marcus's revelation spun around his head like a cyclone, dragging everything into turmoil. Fear knotted his stomach tight. James! Marcus's voice cut through the haze as he took a step back, eyes wide with desperation. You need to trust me. I can protect your son. But the shadows loomed closer, breathing down their necks, urgency slicing through the fear settling in James's gut. He glanced at the SUV, now inching closer, engines revving in a deep growl. Just go, James urged, fear bubbling over. Adrenalin surgea se puso a Marcus torpa el oye de la puerta. before they see you. But just then, as if the universe had chosen that very moment to turn their lives upside down, the passenger door swung open. A figure stepped out, lit by the glow of light, a sharp suit, dark as night, stepping forward with purpose. In that instant, everything shifted. "Marcus!" the man shouted, voice booming like thunder in the still night air. "You can't run from the past." James's heart sank, a sharp cold cutting through him. The man's piercing gaze locked on James. "You think you can protect your son from what you don't understand? Who are you?" James's voice trembled, barely a whisper through the storm of panic. "I'm someone from Marcus's past, someone who ties everything together." Time froze. Confusion suffocated him. James turned to Marcus. "What does he mean? What is he saying?" But Marcus stepped back, his expression shifting from fear to something deeper. Regret, guilt. "James! No!" In a flash, everything escalated. The stranger advanced with a predatory grace. "You didn't know, did you?" he said, eyes glinting with malice. "You think Marcus was just some broken musician?" No, he was the mastermind. The words sliced through the night like a jagged blade. James's world cracked open. "What? No, that can't be true!" But the man continued, voice low and ominous. "Marcus orchestrated it all. The heists, the gangs, the cutthroat deals. He might have gotten out, but those ties don't just vanish. They're tied to you now, too." Every breath James took felt like a stone pulling him down. Memories of his son laughing, learning, building dreams, wrapped around Marcus like vines, now twisted in a different light. No, it can't be!" "I was trying to protect you," Marcus murmured, barely audible, eyes filled with shame. But before James could catch his breath, he felt the air shift again. The vehicle doors swung open, figures pouring out, momentum crashing down on them like a tidal wave. Thunder rumbled in the distance, mixing with the pounding of his heart. "Get in the car!" the man commanded, voice low and threatening. James felt panic grip his chest. Reality unraveled around him. "You're lying! You're all—" Suddenly, a scream erupted from behind. It was his son at the window, eyes wide with terror, face twisted in fear as he clutched the frame, unable to comprehend the unfolding chaos. "James!" the boy shouted, his voice cutting through the madness. "What's happening?" Time slowed. The weight of every revelation crashed down. The safe bubble he thought he had built for his son shattered. The music, the laughter, the connection, they were all under a shadow of darkness he never knew existed. Marcus's true nature hung heavy in the air, dangling over them with gravity. "Get inside," James shouted at his son, desperation clawing at his throat. But standing there, between the chaos and the impending storm, he was no longer sure of anything. Could he run from this dark past? Or would this become their shared reality, pulling them under together? The world felt like it was collapsing, every shred of trust teetering on the edge. Would they find a way out before the shadows closed in for good? James stood frozen, heart hammering in his chest. He caught a glimpse of the black SUV's headlights washing over the front yard, illuminating the night like a spotlight on a dark stage. This was no longer a simple misunderstanding. Marcus's revelation spun around his head like a cyclone, dragging everything into turmoil. Fear knotted his stomach tight. "James!" Marcus's voice cut through the haze as he took a step back, eyes wide with desperation. "You need to trust me. I can protect your son." But the shadows loomed closer, breathing down their necks, urgency slicing through the fear settling in James's gut. He glanced at the SUV, now inching closer, engines revving in a deep growl. "Just go!" James urged, fear bubbling over. Adrenaline surged as he pushed Marcus toward the edge of the porch. "Before they see you!" But just then, as if the universe had chosen that very moment to turn their lives upside down, the passenger door swung open. A figure stepped out, lit by the glow of light. A sharp suit, dark as night, stepping forward with purpose. In that instant, everything shifted. "Marcus!" the man shouted, voice booming like thunder in the still night air. "You can't run from the past!" James's heart sank, a sharp cold cutting through him. The man's piercing gaze locked on James. "You think you can protect your son from what you don't understand? Who are you?" James's voice trembled, barely a whisper through the storm of panic. "I'm someone from Marcus's past, someone who ties everything together." Time froze. Confusion suffocated him. James turned to Marcus. "What does he mean? What is he saying?" But Marcus stepped back, his expression shifting from fear to something deeper. Regret, guilt. "James, no." In a flash, everything escalated. The stranger advanced with a predatory grace. "You didn't know, did you?" he said, eyes glinting with malice. "You think Marcus was just some broken musician? No, he was the mastermind." The words sliced through the night like a jagged blade. James's world cracked open. "What? No, that can't be true." But the man continued, voice low and ominous. "Marcus orchestrated it all. The heists, the gangs, the cutthroat deals. He might have gotten out, but those ties don't just vanish. They're tied to you now, too." Every breath James took felt like a stone pulling him down. Memories of his son, laughing, learning, building dreams, wrapped around Marcus like vines, now twisted in a different light. No, it can't be. I was trying to protect you," Marcus murmured, barely audible, eyes filled with shame. But before James could catch his breath, he felt the air shift again. The vehicle doors swung open, figures pouring out, momentum crashing down on them like a tidal wave. Thunder rumbled in the distance, mixing with the pounding of his heart. "Get in the car," the man commanded, voice low and threatening. James felt panic grip his chest. Reality unraveled around him. "You're lying. You're all." Suddenly, a scream erupted from behind. It was his son at the window, eyes wide with terror, face twisted in fear as he clutched the frame, unable to comprehend the unfolding chaos. "James!" the boy shouted, his voice cutting through the madness. "What's happening?" Time slowed. The weight of every revelation crashed down. The safe bubble he thought he had built for his son shattered. The music, the laughter, the connection, they were all under a shadow of darkness he never knew existed. Marcus's true nature hung heavy in the air, dangling over them with gravity. "Get inside!" James shouted at his son, desperation clawing at his throat. But standing there, between the chaos and the impending storm, he was no longer sure of anything. Could he run from this dark past? Or would this become their shared reality, pulling them under together? The world felt like it was collapsing, every shred of trust teetering on the edge. Would they find a way out before the shadows closed in for good? Then, with a sudden crash, gunfire rang out as several armed men stormed onto the scene. Their intentions clear, eyes hard as stone. They moved with precision, shouting orders, searching for Marcus with a lethal determination. "Run!" James screamed, panic coursing through him as he grabbed his son's arm, pulling him back into the house. But just as they turned to retreat, a terrible twist unfolded. One of the men reached for Marcus. But instead of a struggle, Marcus's face shifted, a calm settling over him that sent a chill through James. "Stop!" Marcus yelled, raising his hands. "I can explain!" There was a moment, a flash of recognition across the men's faces. Then, in an unexpected move, Marcus stepped forward, breaking free of his frantic past and embracing the chaos. "I'm back. I'm ready to join the team," he said, voice smooth and collected. "What?" James's heart plummeted. It felt like the air had been ripped from his lungs. "What are you doing?" But Marcus just looked back at him, eyes unreadable, and James felt like he was staring at a stranger. Everything he thought he knew crashed around him in splintered pieces. The man who had inspired his son had just stepped back into a world James could never understand. And as Marcus walked toward them, ready to claim his past, James's world tilted even further. Would he still protect his son? Or had everything they built been a facade? Would they survive the truth that was now laid bare? The shadows loomed ever closer, unfurling a darkness that threatened to swallow them all. The chaos of the night unfolded like a terrible dream. Marcus stood at the threshold of his past, lost between two worlds. The man in the suit glared, eyes blazing with a mix of betrayal and anger. James clutched his son, fear weighing heavy in the air. "Marcus, what do you mean you're back?" James's voice cracked, confusion washing over him like a tidal wave. He felt his son tremble beside him, eyes wide with the horror of the moment. "I thought I could leave it behind," Marcus shouted, frustration flaring. But the world around him had turned monstrous. The men outside called out again, their voices slicing through the night. "Time's running out, Marcus." A knot twisted in James's stomach. This couldn't be happening. The laughter, the music, the tiny hands playing piano. It all hung by a thread. "You're telling me you were a part of this criminal life?" "No," Marcus pleaded. "I was trying to protect you both. I never wanted this." For a heartbeat, the air thickened with silence. The tension electric. The man in the suit took a step closer, a predatory anticipation flickering in his eyes. "You can't run from your past, Marcus. It'll always find you." Then came the sound, a loud thud as reinforcements arrived, the crack of bone met by frightened gasps from the neighbors. James felt like everything was spiraling, a whirlwind he couldn't escape. "Stay here!" He barked at his son, but before he could turn back, panic surged through him as he caught his son's terrified gaze locked onto Marcus. "Dad, what's happening?" "Get inside!" James shouted, heart racing. He pushed his son toward the open door. But it felt like an impossible task. "James, no!" Marcus shouted, stepping forward, caught up in the moment, willing to dive back into danger for their sake. "I can fix this." James' heart sank. "You're putting us all in danger." Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass erupted from behind them. A neighbor's window shattered by a stray bullet. Screams erupted as chaos unfurled. James grabbed his son, pulling him close. "We need to leave, now." But Marcus raised his hands, desperation in his eyes. "If I go with them, it'll buy you both time. You can escape." "Escape? What are you talking about?" James spit back, overwhelmed. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. This was madness. "Just trust me. We can still have a life after this." The noise grew louder, footsteps closing in. James felt himself starting to break. Everything was unraveling in real time. Shadows chasing his family as danger lurked in the corners of his mind. "Help me, James!" Marcus was pleading now, the gravity of their situation pressing down on them like a weight. "For your son, for the music!" In that moment, they exchanged a silent understanding. James suddenly saw the man before him, the one he had trusted with his child's future, as someone fighting against a past that threatened to consume them all. With a fierce determination, James nodded. "I'll trust you, but we're doing this together." As if on cue, another volley of shouts erupted from outside. But this time, they were empowered by purpose. "Grab what you can!" Marcus shouted, urgency fueling the moment. With every step, they gathered whatever they needed, determination mingling with fear, heart racing as time slipped away. They dashed toward the back of the house, the shadows chasing them. James and his son exchanged one last look, one filled with hope, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. "We're going to be okay," James whispered, though doubt lingered on his tongue. As they burst through the back door and into the night, that memory would become a tether. They had faced darkness, but they fought together, refusing to be torn apart. The echoes of their laughter and music would pull them from the abyss and into the light, no matter how far they had come. But the night was far from over. Just as they dashed into the darkness, James glanced back, uncertainty creeping in once more. Could they truly outrun the past? Before they stepped fully into the shadows, the echoes of chaos snapped at their heels. A flicker of hope shone through the despair, but answers still hovered just out of reach. What choices lay ahead? What truths waited to be uncovered? Now, it's your turn. If you want to be part of more amazing stories like this, you have to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. This is the moment to smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread the love. And don't forget to flood the comment section with your reactions and theories. I'm dying to hear what you think about this wild ending. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. You know how important it is to support the channel.